Hi, everyone, and welcome to Build a Habit Tracker with Notion. I'm really excited to get started. I already see here that we have some people in the chat. Hi, Angelique from Washington. That's awesome that you've been using it for around 3 weeks. I hope that this event can help you get started with it as well and kind of show some of the basics of Notion. As we're getting started, feel free to type into the chat where you're from and how long you've been using Notion. I'd love to hear everyone's experiences with it. So just to give you a brief overview on today's event itinerary, I'll be going over an introduction, habits in general, tips and ideas, and then why Notion for habit tracking, and a session where I'll also show you how to build a habit tracker from scratch, followed by a Q&A, and then also show you how to download freebies and more. So let's dive right in. So my name is Sara, and I've been doing the Organized Notebook since around 2022. And the Organized Notebook specializes in designing Notion templates that help you optimize your workflow, organize data, and increase productivity. Make sure to check out the website and template store. There's a lot of freebies and free resources for beginners to get started with Notion. So I'll also leave the link in the chat here as well, so that you can see what kinds of resources there are there. A few notes about the event. So be sure to add your comments to the chat. Please keep the conversation respectful and about the event. Friendly reminder, the chat section is just to discuss about this event and Notion related topics. Messages not related to these will be moderated and removed if needed. I see here that Samuel from Colorado has been here using Notion for a couple of years. Nice to have you here. And hi as well to Amina. Nice to have you here as well. It's been, I think, about 2 months since I've done this event. So I'm really excited. I'll probably do one also next month when the Notion Asian has come out, so that I can talk about that as well. And hello, Brenda from South Dakota, a couple of years. So you are all quite experienced, I see as well. So that's very cool. Let's now go to the next page, which is about habits and tips and ideas in general. So I think that for a lot of people, once we get into February, it's kind of when we start to lose that motivation and momentum that has started in January. So I think this is a good timing to just think more about habits. And one of my favorite books about habits is called Atomic Habits. So feel free to let me know if you've read this book. If you haven't, I'll also leave the link to the book in the chat. Basically, this book is all about breaking down big things into smaller portions so that it's easier to implement small change and then create a lasting change that is even bigger. So I really recommend this book, and basically tiny changes, remarkable results. So everything starts with the atom in a sense, and then that can build up to something much bigger instead of trying to tackle something head on into a huge project. So let's go over what are habits. So habits is something that you do regularly without being conscious of it. Things like brushing your teeth, reading before bed, it should feel effortless in a sense. So habits are conditional reflexes revolving around people, objects, and knowledge around you. So we usually form them unconsciously based on our environment and other factors, but it's a good idea to just start being more conscious about what kinds of habits you are doing in your day-to-day life, whether those are positive or negative. Our lives are basically a collection of habits. So how you wake up, how you eat, how you use your mobile devices, how you work, they're all habitual. And good habits will lead you to a healthy life, while bad habits can make your life more difficult and less productive. So just understanding like which of your habits are positive versus negative can also help you to kind of analyze what kind of change you might want to implement. So how to form a habit? Habits are conditional reflexes, so it's difficult to force yourself to learn a new habit. So changing the conditions around you instead can be a really good way to actually form that habit. So since it is habitual, it's actually really hard to change sometimes. So that can be also mistaken with achieving goals. So goal setting is more that you might have to try to think more of making significant changes while dismissing smaller transformations. So I think it's a good idea to set goals, but also think about what is the smallest step forward so that you can do a little at a time. And it's also a lot more meaningful that way. I see that everyone's also read the book as well. It's a good book, and it's one that I always like coming back to as well. It just gives me a lot of motivation. Examples of environment on habits. So if you place a key box next to your door, you'll be able to train yourself a new habit to leave your keys in there. If you place water everywhere in your house, you will naturally drink more water as a habit. If your living area has walkable sidewalks, you will learn the habits of walking rather than driving. So changing your environment can be one of the best ways to actually implement habits. So thinking about it in a sense, like for example, if you drink a lot of sugary drinks, you can replace those with zero sugar or seltzer instead, and you'll still feel like you're having that same kind of sugary drink, but it's just a better alternative. So setting small actionable steps instead of a habit to simply read every day, set a habit to read 1 page a day. So being clear on what exactly it is the habit that you want to implement rather than just a general, I'll read more, I'll go exercise more, but being really conscious about how many times a week you're going to go to the gym or what you're actually going to do there can be a lot more useful. The habit should still be enjoyable that you want to continue the next day. The more specific, the better. Another thing is that it's really good to set rewards and make it a positive experience. So you want to make sure that these rewards are something that you really want to look forward to. Make sure to set something that will make you look forward to completing all of those tiny habits, and even better when it's in line with your habit, like new athletic wear for an athletic habit. Breaking a habit, you should consider replacing your old habits with a new one. So like I mentioned with the sugary soda example, it's a good idea to just have within reach a non-sugar seltzer instead. Changing the environment so you can access the habit. So if you tend to eat sweets, it's better just not to buy them and tell everyone to hide them from your view, or also tell people around you that you're not going to eat sweets. Then that can also keep you more accountable. So accountability can be really important. Having someone else who's embarking on the same journey can help. For example, the organized notebook. We read a lot of books to learn more about productivity. Doing this makes more likely to finish the books we start. Setting a schedule for habit formation is also crucial. So time blocking, scheduling, thinking of a timeline with how you'll progress in the habit. So reading 1 page a day to 2 pages a day, 3 pages a day, and how you're going to plan out that timeline can be also useful. So thinking in plans is a good idea when forming habits. And then finally, also how to choose your habits. So small successes are more important than one monumental success that takes months or even years. So these small habits will lead to big change in the future. You can think about the way that it will make the most impact in your daily life. So I wouldn't choose too many habits to start. I think 3 is a good number generally, because it's enough that there is some habits that you want to track, but it's not overwhelming that you would have a huge checklist of things to check off every day. So just keeping things small and actionable is the best way to do it. So next, I wanted to talk more about why Notion for habit tracking in general. So feel free to let me know, have you tried habit tracking with Notion? How was or is your experience? There's actually quite a lot of different ways to track your habits in Notion because of the way that you can set up the databases. Today, we're going to be covering a way that's a little bit more simple in its approach, but I think it's also one of the best ways to set it up, especially if you're tracking, let's say, around 3 habits. So what makes Notion great for habit tracking is basically the flexibility. So in Notion, especially with the databases, you're able to showcase your data in multiple different layouts and views. So what that means is that even though you track your habits in a calendar view, you can then transform that into a graph. You can transform that into a simple table, for example. So you can do a lot with the way that you see it. Tracking on a calendar, it's also really easy to use on both desktop and mobile, so you can use it on the go. You can write down your reflections and planning in the same place, so Notion is great for that too. The flexibility, as I mentioned, the different database views, you can try different kinds of things like calendar, table, and charts. Calendar view tracking in particular allows you to see your daily habits through a calendar and tick them off through the day. And here I actually wanted to showcase a few recent updates to Notion that I think will make the habit tracking even more enjoyable on Notion, which is things like the conditional color. So if you complete all three, you can make it green. I'll show this a bit later. You can also choose between month view or week view at the moment, so you can see daily by using filters too. Angelique writes, I haven't tried it yet, still a bit overwhelmed by all the features, but one of the first things I want to learn. Okay, well then it's perfect that we're covering this today. Yeah, adding a habit tracker to your workspace can be a really good thing to add as a first setup. Desktop and mobile. So Notion works well on mobile and desktop. You can download on all your devices so that you can easily access Notion on the go and at home. So when you finish your habit, you can check it off on your phone. You can even type quick notes into it. And now with Notion AI meeting notes too, you can even, talk about it if you want and transcribe your feelings at the moment that you're doing your habit tracking too. So reflection and planning. During habit tracking, it's really important to plan your habits, as I mentioned. It's also equally important to reflect when you're done so that you can make improvements. So if things don't work out, it's a good idea to note down what went well, what didn't go well. Both can be done in Notion. And for example, in other apps that you have for habit tracking, you might have to separate your journaling from your actual habit tracking. So in that sense, it's kind of nice that in Notion, you'll be able to also make notes while you're also ticking off the habits as well. So let's go into the next section. And we'll be building out a simple habit tracker today. Just to show you a sample of what we're going to build, it's going to look something like this. So basically, you can use it for 1 month. Of course, you can use it for longer than that if you'd like. But for the basic planning and reflection, it's going to be more for a monthly thing, or depending on your time frame, it can be quarterly or however you want to track it. Each habit gets its own planning and reflection page. So you can do things like planning out when you're going to do the habit tracking, things like that. And then when you're done, you can do a reflection. You can also set your frequency goal targets, why you want to do this habit, which is also equally important that you have this really strong motivation on why you want to do it. And then also the reward. So each habit will get one of these boxes for that. And then in the habit tracker itself, we'll have these check boxes for each habit. And I'll also show you how to change the colors like this, which is a really cool new feature in Notion with the conditional colors, so that you can get a very quick visual on where you're at with your habits and your percentages. If you don't need all of this, you don't actually need to add all of these features, but you can pick and choose the ones that you feel like work for you best. If you open up a habit, you'll see you can write your daily reflection in here as well. And then you can see it weekly. You can see it in table view. So you can see like an average daily percentage of how many habits that you're checking off. And then also a graph for your month as well if you have charts enabled in your workspace. So this is basically what we're going to be building. If this goes too fast, this is going to be recorded, so you can definitely rewatch this and build it at your own pace as well. So let's dive right in with the habit tracker. So the first step to doing this is going to be to have an empty Notion page that you can work with. I would add a cover photo if you haven't added a cover photo yet, and also an icon if you'd like. And we can go ahead and rename this habit tracker like this, and then press enter. So the first step that I like to do for most builds that I do in Notion is just to do full page and also small text. And this actually allows to be able to add more information on the page. So especially for 2-column layouts, it's really good to do this part first. So often people don't realize that you can do this and end up with a really scrunched looking dashboard. So make sure to turn on small text full width. Then what we're going to do is separate this into 2 columns. So we're going to type /column to create 2 columns. And on this side, we're going to add that call out box, which is where we're going to store the dates that you want to track your habits. And on the right hand side, you can add /heading 3, and we'll add the habit tracker itself here, and then /divider. And of course, you can kind of decorate this the way that you want to do it. For example, if you like a lot of colors, you can make sure that your call out boxes, even your text, can be colorful. All the options are located if you do this, and you can even change colors here. This menu layout is actually new, so I really like this new format. Actually, I think it looks really good. So be sure to highlight it and then choose different text formatting options. So now I'm going to change this one into default background so I can get that sort of minimal look here. And I'll also add an icon so that it can have that calendar. So I'm going to put the calendar icon here. And I'll put, let's say that I started this habit tracker on February 19th. And I'm going to track this until March 19th, 2026. And I can even bold this one. And I'm going to start building the various habit sections. So I'm going to do more call out boxes. And this one, I'll put a flag, something like this. And let's say that this is habit 1. So I can go ahead and bold this and start adding things inside. If you press enter, you can add more information inside these boxes. And the 2 pages I'm going to add by typing /page is going to be the planning page. And here you can kind of create your own prompts as well. So for example, how will I implement this habit in my day-to-day life? And you can kind of create your own sort of system here where you want to ask yourself questions. And once you have that filled in, you can even add an icon for this one, such as this thinking icon. And then under here, you could also have the reflection by typing /page. And you can create another nested page inside called reflection and add an icon. I'm going to add the writing one like this. And here as well, you can add your own prompts. So you can make sure to add that in. And once you have that, then basically you can add, for example, frequency, goal target, your why, and also your reward. And you can also bold this one. So in this case, I would say that the goal target and frequency mainly in this kind of habit tracker would be that you want to accomplish this daily, but you don't necessarily have to do all of the habits daily. You can also think of it, multiple times a week if you need, and then compare the percentages to your target. So that's also flexible. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this so that we can now put your habit 2, and you can duplicate again to put habit 3. So now we kind of have the left-hand column layout like this. The next step is going to be to add our habits database. So this is actually a very simple build, and it could be good, especially if you're learning Notion. So I'm going to do a database, and I'm going to add a full page database. So the full page database basically allows you to have only the database in the page. And I'm going to name this one habit tracker. And I'll put event 2026 so I can easily find it. And I'll also make a call out for that so that we can add the database in the call out box. So I'll put that in here and the database icon and just drag this in. So that's going to basically allow me to store that database in here. But for the display, I'm going to use a linked view of what this database is. And in general, it's good to either use the database directly or display it into dashboards as you need. So I'm going to go ahead now to actually create that habit tracker database and sort of organize that. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and stay in the habit tracker here and start adding various properties. So the first thing I recommend is just to change this into a calendar view. So we're going to go to calendar. And let's say that we call this one monthly. And we'll add a page in here just to get started. So this is going to be your daily habit. We can add properties. And in this case, we're going to add 3 check boxes for each of your habits. If you have more than 3 habits, you can also add more check boxes as you need. So I'm going to do habit 1 here, and I can just duplicate this one. Put habit 2, and I'll duplicate it again for habit 3. Like this. We have the date, and then in here you would do some kind of reflection. So to set that up, you can actually go to the button next to new to create a database template. So we can put daily habit, and we can also put an icon like a pin here. And what the template basically does is that it allows you to templatize your entries. So if you always want, let's say heading 3, your daily reflection / divider, and have that place to write out your reflection every day, you can set that up as a template. You can even duplicate this every day so that it's just going to pop up automatically every day for your daily habit tracking. So that's that. And also you can even make it so that when the daily habit tracker is duplicated is the date when it should go into your calendar. So this is something to also check out if you're interested in automated duplication every day. So now I can click out and actually just set this as a default for all views. And what that means is anytime I add a new item here, you can see that the daily reflection also pops up, and I even have that icon and the title from the template. The next step is going to be to go to your settings, and we're going to change the property visibility. So we see here habit 1, 2, and 3. So that basically allows you to check off your habits every day like this. And if you add a new page, you can see that there's more like this. And I can also add that template for these. So that's the basic setup for the monthly habit tracker. You can also duplicate this view to create a weekly, and you can also create a table. So I'm going to go ahead and add that table as well. So I'm going to do table, and I'll freeze this column so that we have access to all of the different properties. And then what I'm going to do is actually click the settings here, group, and I'm going to group this by date and date by month. So you'll get your statistics for each of your months this way. So just to show you, if we go back to the monthly view, and let's say that I have an entry in January, you'll be able to see in the table view your January like this. And I can also go to group and make sure that the newest is at the top. I can also do the sort so that we see either ascending or descending, depending on how you want to see it. I think ascending typically works better in this view, so I can save that. And now that we have this table view, what you can do that I find useful is to calculate. So you just have to click on the title of the column, go to calculate, and percent checked. So you can see that I've checked 66.6% of habit 1, and then I can do calculate percent checked and calculate percent checked. So if I do this, you can see it's 100%, and that way you can track your month to month percentages. So now we have the table and that. So we can actually now go back to our habit tracker main page. And what I'm going to do now is do that linked view database. So you just type /linked view of data source and choose the correct database, Habit Tracker Event 2026, and I'll add the monthly here. And I'll also add that table view that I've already added, like this, table. And now I see monthly and table. I can go ahead and hide the title. So now we see 2 tabs here, and it has a really clean layout this way. The next step I'm going to do is to kind of make things a little bit nicer with the habit tracker, and that's going to be to add the daily percentage. So you'll be able to see what percent you have completed of your habits in a formula property. So to do that, I'm going to click add a property and choose formula. And I'm going to do edit. I'm going to call this one daily percentage and edit formula. So if you're new to formulas, this is also a good way to just kind of get used to it as well. And if you have Notion AI, you can also just simply ask it to write formulas for you, which has been really helpful and a huge time saver. But in case that you want to kind of learn more about how to write formulas, in this case, we want to calculate the percentage of the 3 checkboxes and how many you've completed. And I have a formula already here, but I'm going to just walk you through it as well. So basically, this one takes into account that you have habit 1. So if habit 1 is checked, you get 1. And then you add that to if habit 2 is checked, you get 1. And then if habit 3 is checked, it's 1. So if it's not checked, it gets 0. And it basically just adds all of them together. If you have more than 3 habits, you just have to extend this to do another plus and add if habit 4, 1, and then 0, and then divide by 4. So this one is the total number of habits that you have. And that's actually going to calculate the percentage. So if I click out now, you'll see that since it's all checked, it's 1. But we can go further by edit property and change the number format to be percentage. And here I do 2, and we can even have a bar. So now if you can see here, it shows the correct percentage there. So now that I've added that property, I can even display that property visibility and go daily percentage. So now we see the percentage that has been checked visually as well. And actually that percentage also allows you to calculate within each of your months in the table view to show aggregation and calculate, for example, the average daily percentage you have. So if I check all of them, you'll see here that your average daily is 100, but if you miss one during that month, you'll see that it's 88.8 is your average out of these 3 daily percentages. So now what we can do is to add that conditional color. So this gets a little bit more advanced, but since I've also done habit tracker builds in the past, I thought it would be interesting just to show you kind of some more advanced tricks that are now possible thanks to Notion's updates. So what that's going to be is a color view of how you're doing with your daily habit tracking. So if I go now to my settings, I can add a conditional color. And conditional colors basically allows you to assign different colors based on a conditional setting. So for that, what we're going to do is to click plus new color setting, and it's going to all be based on the daily percentage. So if the daily percentage, let's say, is less than, and I'm going to put 0.34 so that if it's just 1, it's going to calculate lower than that. And I'm going to do red background. So I'm going to now add another one, daily percentage. And now if it's less than 0.67, it's going to be orange. And then if I add another one, which is that it's basically 1, meaning 100%, it's green. And the way that conditional colors work is that it takes the first one and checks the conditional, then it goes to the second one, and then the third one, which is why you want the smallest one at the top in this case. So now let's say that I click here. I haven't filled in any of the habits, so it's red. But as I go through the day, it's going to turn green. And now I can also show that you can duplicate this view. And let's say that this is in weekly. I can change the layout to be week. And now you'll see your week this way. So if I just fill it in, it would look something like this. So maybe compared to monthly, this could be less overwhelming as well. So this is something else to consider if you're doing habit tracking. So now if we go to the third view that I wanted to showcase, that's going to be with the charts. And we can basically duplicate this view. Go to layout and click chart. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this as chart, or actually like a line graph. So I'll do that. And we want this line graph option. And the first thing I'm going to do actually is to filter it by the date. So we only want to see this month like this and save for everyone. And then in the settings, what we're going to show is the daily percentage, and we can see the sum like this. So basically it's 100%, 67 if you've only done 2, and then 100% if you've done all 3 habits. So this can also give you a visual on how your month is going, so that if, let's say, for these 3 days you did really good, but then here you just didn't do any of your habits, you would clearly see how your trend is over time, that you were doing really well and then you kind of got back into it. So that's how I would also use the graph if you're interested in sort of visual representation of your habit tracker throughout the month. And if you have a free plan, you get one graph for free. But if you want to use multiple graphs, you will need to have a plus plan or higher. The last thing I actually wanted to show is the AI capabilities. So I think that Notion AI has also gotten a lot better over the years now. And I wanted to just show that a lot of the sort of analysis of how your habit tracking is going can also be done through your Notion AI. So if you have Notion AI, I would definitely utilize this. So I can ask things like, how am I doing with my habits? And it actually gives me a really accurate idea on how things are going with my habit tracking as well. So I would really recommend trying Notion AI out for this use. So you can see that it's kind of accessing the habit tracker data. And let's see what it comes up with. So now you can see what it came up with. So you can see from what you've logged so far, you've started strong and it looks like you're building momentum. So you can see the percentage of the days that I've logged in habits completed. And you can see habits 1 and 3 and habits 2 are trailing. Let me see here. Yeah, so you can see kind of the habit tracker working there. It might not give you the most accurate view of what you have currently. So I would recommend restarting it if you feel like it's not showing the correct amount of logs, for example, in this case. So, but it definitely is a useful feature to try out if you haven't tried Notion AI. So now if I go back, I just wanted to show you that there's also a goal and habit tracker system that I've built as a template that kind of takes this to another level in the sense that you go from life areas to goals to habits, kind of like mirroring the concepts of atomic habits. And you have, a goal planner here and then a habit planner, and then you can see everything in a habit tracker. So if you're looking to sort of see how you can take something simple like the habit tracker that we built together all the way to something that's more of a goal and habit tracker system, you can see here some of the examples that you can potentially implement into your own workspaces, like having various life areas, goals, habits, rewards, resources. So if you're interested in this template, I'll also leave the link to it in the chat. If you're interested, there is currently a 40% discount with the code Feb40. So you can check it out if you're interested in a pre-made solution. I'll put that there. And next we have a Q&A. So let me know if you have any questions. I know that this might have gone kind of quickly. So if you want to rewatch it, that could be really useful if you want to try to build it just like I did. But feel free to let me know if you have any questions that I can answer here. If you come up with anything later, I'm also available through email. So yeah, let me know if you have anything that you're wondering about with the habit tracking. Okay, looks like no one has any questions. So we're going to go to the next section. So as I mentioned, be sure to check out the Ultimate Habit Tracker with discount code Feb40. There's also a 30% discount with code Course30 for Notion course that I've made. This was updated back in October, so it's still pretty recent compared to probably a lot of resources out there. So be sure to check that out if you're interested in the course. Someone asked, please, Sarah, the column on the left in the previous page top were the pages. On the left in the previous page top. Maybe if you could explain a bit more what you mean by that. That would be helpful. Maybe you mean that there were the 2 pages that were in the left column. Yeah, links to other pages. Yeah, so I'll just put the link here really quickly, but I can go back and just briefly explain that. So if I go to the habit tracker we built, the planning and reflection here on the left side, these are nested pages. So basically it's a page inside of the habit tracker page that you can then use as your planning and also as a reflection. You can do that per habit. So let's say that you want to plan habit 1 and you want to reflect on habit 1. You can have your 2 pages here. Same for habit 2 and habit 3. So these are not databases. They're just simple pages, which can allow you to do a lot of planning and reflection. So I hope that helps answer your question. Great. I'm glad that I was able to answer it. Great. Well, I'll go to here, and I also wanted to showcase that I have some freebies. So be sure to download those especially if you're new to Notion. There's some resources there that you can use. So I'll put that there. And I also provide one-to-one coaching sessions. So if you're interested in any custom services, that's also available. So I'll leave the link here. And finally, if you come up with any questions after this event is over, feel free to just email me. I'm always really excited and happy to help people with Notion. So if you have any questions, you can reach me there at organizednotebook.info@gmail.com. So I hope that this event was useful. Hopefully I'll schedule another one next month, probably near the end of the month. And that might be about Notion AI agents. I'm not 100% sure yet, but keep an eye out on my website or on YouTube, and you should see information about it. So thank you all so much for joining today, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day.